This week sees the MotoGP World Championship race in Indonesia at a brand new track. So we're here to preview what two-wheeled action we might be in store for. This is the Crash MotoGP podcast. The recording date is Monday the 14th of March. My name is Harry Benjamin. Alongside me, Crash MotoGP editor Pete McLaren, and of course, former Grand Prix rider and British champion Keith Huewen. Coming up, new flag and safety rules announced across the classes. Disaster for Moto3's John McPhee. Your questions answered, and there's a lot of them this week. Plus, Keith's Insider's Guide to Mandalika. Do make sure you are subscribed to the Crash MotoGP YouTube channel and the Crash MotoGP podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from. Leave us a like and review. It goes a long way. But while you do that, let's get stuck into things, shall we, gents? And first of all, I suppose if we work a little bit in chronological order of what's happened in the last few days since the first race. There's been a few updates in terms of sort of little technical regulations and sporting rules. This use of yellow and red flags has been redefined, Pete. It might be worth coming to you on that first. Could you just explain a little bit about what's happened there? Because it seems like they just tried to make it a bit more simple in terms of what the riders can expect when looking at the flags.
That's right, Harry. This does seem to have come from the riders. So this is feedback from the riders that they've taken on board. And it was basically, it was to just sort of split the rain flag and the reduced adhesion flags, if you like, because there were situations in the past where if it was raining and it was slippery on track, you'd see both flags. Now, the trouble with that is if something else then happened, such as someone dropped oil, there was gravel, something like that, you've still got those same flags out. So the riders didn't know that there was something in addition to the rain on the track. So what they're doing now is the rain flag is only for rain and the limited adhesion flag is only for things other than rain. So that's the key thing. If you see both flags being waved in future, you know it's raining and there's something on the track. So this has come from the riders. It makes sense. I think that it's going to filter down across all sort of the two-wheel classes now. But that's, the riders wanted a bit more clarity on that, I think.
Mm. And that is effective immediately.
Makes you wonder how it took them so long sometimes, doesn't it? Because it's almost like comes under the heading of common sense, like sort of it's fairly easy to work out. I noted, Harry, that you regarded us as simple rule changes for the simpletons among us. But
it does make sense. And what also makes sense, of course, is, Keith, we've spoken about this many, many times, is that Moto3 have said, or it's been said for Moto3, they're developing this new accident warning system for in-race situations, of course, in response to the tragedies that occurred last year. It's still yet to kind of be fully explained, but it looks like they're going to go with the whole rear rain light flashing system to warn other bikes around when there's a fallen rider. This is good stuff, isn't it, to come out so early in the season? But it needs to happen quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, but you've got to have a test period for it to work through. You've got to have that transition period to make sure that it absolutely is foolproof, because the last thing you need is the wrong kind of signals going back. That's going to cause you as many troubles as not having it. So at the end of the day, it's got to be right. And they've scheduled that. They've slated that for some races this year to try the system out, to try and work the system through. And the riders at the end will give the ultimate verdict on that, I would have said. But it's still not going to affect really the front group, if you like. It's a situation where the following group are going to be the beneficiaries of something like that, because if something happens instantaneously, you're already in that sector. You're already amongst those riders. So it's still not kind of going to stop, say, 50% of the kind of accidents that we've seen where people have come together, tagged each other, but it will make it a lot safer for those that are coming onto that scene. They'll have that visual early warning that there is a massive accident or massive problem coming up ahead of them. So yeah, it's a benefit, but we'll see how it pans out, see how it works at the moment. I mean, I think most of the focus for me at the minute technically is on what's not going to be allowed in the future rather than what's coming as new. I mean, this bonfire that's gone up over the shapeshifters that Ducati have obviously developed to the nth degree under the rules as they are at the moment. That's creating quite a lot of people thinking about where we're going from all of that. Actually, I don't know why, but going through my head while I was thinking of that was there's all of us looking towards all this high innovation and all this new stuff that's coming out, and then there's the baggers race at Daytona that's got us all watching it because Jeremy Williams won the second one out there. A 57-year-old bloke on a monster motorbike with bloody panniers on the back of it, and the whole world is watching that and cheering about it while we're going on about tiny details in Grand Prix.
How far?
I think it goes under the heading, doesn't it, that as long as it's good racing, any racing is pretty good. Maybe.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people would agree with you. How far we've come, though, to be bickering over the minute instances of MotoGP. And what is a minute instance, just to round off this new warning system, Pete, is that I read that, I think on Crash.net, they're going to have to change up the system already in which they're being warned, because at the moment it's a dashboard messaging system, isn't it? So that has to change because that's a one-way system right now.
Yeah, I'm no expert on this, but this is what the people have told me.
This is your idea last year, wasn't it?
But this is what the people, when I asked about this idea, this was what I was told. You're right to bring this up, Harry, because they were told that was the main difficulty. They went, look, finding out a bike has fallen over, we can do that now. You know, even your most basic bike has a tilt switch which shuts the engine off when it's on its side. I mean, there's the very basic method of telling you a bike has fallen over. That's not the difficult part. The difficult part is, and Keith was saying as well, getting this foolproof communication to go from the fallen bike to the other riders. And this is what you're speaking about there. And yes, this is what was told to me by the people high up at Dorna that look after all the technical side, is that it's, at the moment, the communication to the bikes is one way. It goes from race direction to the bikes. Now you've got to change that so that it's coming out from the bikes and going to other bikes as well. So I think that is probably the biggest solution, or biggest area where they need to find a solution, consistent, reliable solution, and something that they know is going to work in all types of weather, whether you've got hilly tracks, whatever it is, that you're going to get this reliable signal being sent out. I think detecting that a bike's fallen over, they can do that pretty easily. I think it's the communication side is really where they're going to, as Keith says, this is what these tests will be during the race situations. I think that's what their focus will be, making sure that they can get the message out there.
The other thing as well, speaking as a rider, is that you're looking at your dashboard 90% of the time. You're too busy focused elsewhere, or you're over one side of the bike or you're over the other side of the bike. So dashboard warnings are great. When you're down the front straight, you can have a quick gander at what's going on, but you don't have much rest on a racing motorbike, even on a Moto3 bike. There's a lot going on. So really the combination of dashboard, rear light, trackside, they've got that right now with these flashing, red, yellow, blue, and so on, flashing lights at the side of the track. But I'm still, I still think that in-helmet marker is still one that, again, you can't avoid, because it's there wherever you're looking, wherever you are on the bike, wherever you are on the track, you've got that marker. But will that be a distraction for some riders? Will they not want that? There are going to be riders that won't want that kind of system, that are old school riders. Would you want that? Again, strangely, earplugs. Everybody uses earplugs now, but I remember when they first came out, I couldn't ride with an earplug in. It
Really?
absolutely distracted the hell out of me. Fortunately, I never went deaf, but a lot of riders of my era are partially deaf and having to use hearing aids and the like now because of the amount of noise, wind noise or motorbike noise that went on in your helmet. But it was a real big thing for me. I remember trying to put them in. It was like I was drunk when the first lap I did with it. So seeing a flashing light in your helmet, I can understand that might be a bit tricky as well. So the riders have really got to approve these things as they evolve, I think, is the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely, Keith. Sorry, I should have made clear. As you say, the dashboard message is not sufficient. It's just that at the moment is the method by which race direction communicates with the bike. So yeah, that won't be good enough. It'll be, as you say, the rear rain light or maybe a helmet light. But even so, the issue is the two-way system. That's the bit they've got to sort out. But yeah, if it was just a matter of sorting out the dashboard messages, they've got them now, as Keith says, and as we've seen, they're not good enough. It doesn't work. Look at Lorenzo Savadori, Danny Pedrosa in Austria last year, wasn't it? That could have been Pedrosa was mid-pack, Savadori was at the back. I think it was 5 seconds, time difference between a fallen bike and then Savadori hitting that bike. So we know something needs to be done. The yellow flags were out then, but he just didn't see them. As Keith says, you leant over, he was unsighted. So yeah, there's a lot of things to work out, isn't there? There's the communication side, the visual side, or even an audible sound. Let's see what they come up with, but they're making progress. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, definitely. The main thing is that they are doing that.
Indeed. There's a big effort going on behind the scenes to get it right, which is a good thing.
100%. Well, let's keep with Moto 3, actually, because there's a lot of news coming out about that. And it's after a very, very decent start to the year, finished 5th in this first race. John McPhee, Keith, he's, the quotes are he's targeting a return, and that's because he's now out. He's fractured 2 of his vertebrae in a training accident, so he's missing Indonesia. Nightmare start for John McPhee, and what is a crucial year for him.
I don't know if,
have I been too harsh?
We're Buddhists in this family, through one way or another. So at the end of the day, what goes around comes around is the karma with Buddhism, and the belief that something you did in a previous life is affecting the one that you're having right now. So I don't know what the hell John McPhee did in the previous life, because he has no bloody luck every time I watch. I mean, it's hard to believe that McPhee could have some of the kind of luck that he has, but this. I was reading something on his website this morning, because he fell out with me the other day. I tweeted it out that he wasn't riding in Mandalika because of a training injury. I was a bit quick off the mark, but it was actually already out there in the public domain. I'd already had the notification that the team had withdrawn him and he wasn't going to be replaced for Mandalika. So I put it in Twitter, and he tweeted me to say, "Thanks a lot, mate. I hadn't told half of my bloody sponsors yet." So he wasn't the happiest of chaps. But the fact is, I think it's the only time that he's ever withdrawn from a race because of a training incident. And there are a lot of riders that can't throw stones in this particular glass house because, training accidents are happening all the time. Well, the top man, Marquez, I mean, that's the reason why he was out, because of a training accident. It happens all of the time. But right at a crucial time for McPhee. McPhee needs this year. He will be 28 later in this year. That means no more Moto 3. Next year, he'll be done. He'll be too old for Moto 3 come next year, I think. I think that's the rule, isn't it, Pete? I think 28. But anyway, I'm sure it is. And so McPhee is at a crossroads, massive crossroads. He needs result after result after result this year. You can see the way the trolls have set about him lately and all the rest of it. What was one of them said that will save the crash damage from this weekend then, or something along those lines. It's a harsh world that McPhee is in at the moment. He's got to put all of that stuff that he's reading or seeing behind him and come back yet again. We know he can do it because he's done it many, many times. But a back injury, mate, you only realise what's connected when you've got a back injury. If you move your little finger, it hurts your back. I mean, I've compressed. One of my earliest accidents was the bottom 4 vertebrae in my back when I had a crash at Brands and went under the barrier at Bottom Bend, as it was in the day. And even as a youngster as I was then, I was only like 19, that has haunted me for the rest of my life. Still now. You get up in the morning and you walk on all fours for the first half an hour. It's ridiculous. Might be age, but anyway. But the fact is that it's a painful injury, and one that you just can't get a grip of. It fixes itself. It mends when it mends. You can build up muscle around your back to try and keep your back strong. Apparently, this isn't an injury that needs surgery. It sounds like he's fractured or squidged some vertebrae. Now, the cartilages between the vertebrae, what happens with some is that they get squidged out and then you bone to bone, and it's unbelievably painful. It's unbelievably painful. You stretch your arm out and your back twists. You move your head and your back tweaks. It's something that you just can't. Anybody with a back injury that's listening to this will know exactly what I'm talking about. Anybody that's got back pain, lower back pain, they will know exactly what I'm on about. And McPhee has got, this is going to be a big issue to get over at the beginning of a year. Disaster.
Yeah, it's no good way of looking at it, Pete. He has said that it's stable and there is no need for surgery, so he's hoping to be back in time for the Argentine Grand Prix at the start of April. But I mean, there's just nothing good to come out of this. In contention for a podium, just about, but slipped back in the towards the end in Qatar. So would have been hoping to carry through that momentum now. And as Keith alludes to, he's going to have to just sort of rebuild yet again.
That's it, Harry, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, 5th place, it's a good solid start to the year, wasn't it? Not obviously his teammates sort of stole the limelight, didn't he, Sasaki, by leading for all that time and everything else. But still, it was on paper, it was a good solid base by which to start the year. And you often think solid points until you get into the European season, and then that's when the real heart of the championship is. But yeah, it's definitely sort of obviously knocked him out of kilter here.
It's funny, we talk about solid, don't we? Like a 5th place is nowhere. In Moto 3, it's brilliant. To be in that group to be thereabouts with the quality that there is in Moto3, it's a great race. It's only because he's reached the age and he's a bit of a veteran in that class. I think that people are a little bit down on him. He's one of our best riders in this country. He's a Grand Prix winner, and yet he kind of gets that. I don't know. He gets that slack. Maybe it's because he's Scottish. I don't know. It's kind of one of them things where he gets stick when he doesn't deserve it. He's one of our top riders, one of our top racers, and I kind of don't understand it. Yeah, criticism I think is always due with all riders. We're talking about a performance industry, so if you're doing the business, then you get the accolades. If you're not, then you don't. But 5th place in the opening Grand Prix is a good ride by anybody's standard.
And also, of course, John did a good job when he stepped on that Moto2 bike, didn't he? Keith was just saying about how wanting to go up a class next year. So, he'd already he didn't get the ride for this year, but he's already got half a door open, you might say, as far as Moto2 teams just knowing, well, yeah, he can ride a bigger bike. And so as Keith says, this season is so important to then sort of seal the deal, if you like, in Moto2 next year. And so, yeah, it's a really unfortunate timing. And let's hope that, as Keith says, this injury heals and doesn't keep niggling away and dragging on. Sometimes it sounds strange, but when you see things, it doesn't require surgery, that can sometimes mean a longer recovery, can't it? Sometimes when they go in and they bolt a bit of metal on, the guys jump on a bike and they're fine, and yet other people that choose not to. So I think just reading from that, people might interpret as like, it's not a big deal. But, as Keith explained, any kind of back injury is a big deal.
Well, I'm sure we'll all be sending him our best wishes for a speedy recovery, because we want John McPhee on that grid and performing well in what is a big year for him. So all the best to John and for a speedy recovery. But as we all know, not the best timing to happen right at the start of the year. Well, lots going on in Moto3 in between a Grand Prix. Let's head back up to MotoGP, because we had quite a lot of questions come in from our valued listeners. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you for getting in touch in all the usual ways. Lots of these from our YouTube comments section, so I picked a couple out to chuck at you guys. Griff has asked you both, and a lot of this is, of course, based on the fallout of Qatar. Do you think the Suzukis, we all know they had really strong pace, they were really sort of bigged up, but perhaps underperformed when it came to the race. Do you think the Suzukis had to hold back because of fuel? They had the top speed, but somehow just couldn't get closer to the front. I hope that's not the case. It must be the first time since I started following MotoGP in 1988 that Suzuki had one of the best top speeds.
It's a good shout. I mean, he's doing his homework, because we had that with Ducati once, didn't we? It used to be the fastest motorbike in a straight line, but you get towards the end of the race and they were on a fuel-saving mode. I don't think that's the case with Suzuki. I don't think we're that close regarding the fueling of its concern. But some of these fast tracks like Kota or here, Qatar as was and the like, you're going to be running it fairly thin, I would think, by the end of a race. I think what happened in Qatar was more by the fact that the 3 days of running were inconsistent. They weren't the same. Friday was what it was. Saturday was kind of overcast and dusty and miserable and a little bit windy at one time as well. And I think that the track conditions changed, and you only have to be the tiniest amount out on, for instance, tire pressure. A little bit too much tire pressure, and you get that ballooning. That when the tire heats up to a temperature you weren't expecting it to get to, you lose the grip and the shape and the support that you were expecting from it. So there are a lot of things that could have affected them, I think. If Suzuki were all at sea, imagine how Ducati must have felt by the time they was finishing. Okay, so they ended up with a race win. That was a bit of luck, wasn't it? If you're going to enter 8 bikes into a race, though, you might expect that one of them might come up with the goods. I think when we move on to Mandalika, that's going to be a different kettle of fish altogether. I think that we got to worry whether the track is going to be up to speed, whether whatever these problems were that they had both at the World Superbikes prior, didn't do anything about. We got to MotoGP testing and the track was breaking up in the worst of possible places. There was only one line around there that you could ride on. That is going to be a major issue, and we hold our breath, because the Indonesian round, make no bones about it, is really, really important in Dorna's marketplace, in the region's marketplace. I mean, an Indonesian Grand Prix. How many people are in Indonesia and all them islands? 250 million or something, of which a huge set of regions, if you like, and a massive market for motorcycling, particularly. So everyone's going to be wanting to make that work. always used to not amuse me, but astound me. But the amount of effort Honda used to put into the PR, they always made Marc Marquez into Malaysia, into Indonesia. Always really, it's just steal the PR, high ground every single year. And rambling on like I do, I reckon it's going to be a Honda weekend.
Hold that, because we've got our predictions to do. We shall hold on to that. That Keith's already given the game away there. But Pete, let's come on to Yamaha as well. Just looking ahead to this weekend as well, and obviously off of